Hello and welcome, my name is Alex S. Bradshaw and you might have noticed that the setup today is slightly different than the one it was in the previous videos, in that we're not using the phone, we are using a microphone, got a webcam as the camera over there, and we've got a computer over there sorting everything out. Now this is because we're doing this video is going to be about the tabletop RPG aspect of our fantasy adventures together. So this is the setup that I'll probably be using, not exactly like this, but I wanted to talk you through it a little bit before we moved over to the computer and doing the actual rolling. So I've been playing tabletop role-playing games for quite a while. I played them at university. I've been running a game with my friends for a number of years now, and I've hopped in some like one-shots and things and evening ones with other friends that are running games separately. And I recently came across a channel called Me, Myself and Die by a chap called Trevor Duval, who is a voice actor. So much like some Critical Role or the other that kind of tabletop RPG actual play videos and programs and podcasts and things you might have seen. He's a voice actor as well, but he does it all himself. So I'm actually wearing, as my part of my tabletop RPG getup, I'm wearing one of his t-shirts, which says on it, you can't see, but it says the dice will always tell the story. So what Trevor Duval has been doing is playing solo. He's played a various number of systems as he's done his various seasons, and I just thought that was a really great idea, as there's loads of different systems that I'd like to try, and that could give me a way to try them out. But it's also shown me that there's loads of solo RPGs out there that are specifically made for one player, and I'd love to try some of those out as well. So the plan is to start off with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, because that's the system that I'm most familiar with. I'm most familiar with that. Been playing with my friends and running the game. And then we'll play that with what's known as an Oracle. There's the GM emulator, Mythic GM emulator, 2nd edition, which is there to ask yes/no questions of it and has a table. If I'm clever enough, I'll maybe just flash up the table as it is now. And basically, yeah, you ask that, and depending on certain factors and whether it's likely or unlikely, then the table gives you the answer yes or no. So it does some of the work for the Dungeon Master in that way, and there's also loads of tables that show, that give you kind of inspiration. So you roll a couple of times, it gives you like an action and a noun and stuff like that, and that's what Trevor Duval has been doing with his stuff, and it's been so fun to watch. And what I love about it is that he doesn't know what's going to happen, you as the viewer don't know what's going to happen, so you are taking this adventure together, and that's what I'd love to do with you guys. So as I say, we'll start off with D&D because that's what I'm familiar with, and we'll use the Mythic GM emulator to do that. And as part of leaning into this completely random, I don't know what's going to happen, in a minute we'll go over to the computer and then we will use Xanathar's Guide, which I have behind me there, yeah, that way, to roll up a character and backstory, and then we'll just kind of see where the adventure goes from there. Before we get into that, as I say, the D&D is only one aspect of the various different things that I'd like to try with this. Again, if I'm clever enough, and I don't have any physical copies, I'll pop up some covers here. But there's a game called Leechdom, which I tried doing the other day. Just make sure you can see that. You can. And that's a single-player RPG where you play as a leech, a sorcerer intending to be a leech who has plumbed the depths of arcane and mundane knowledge to give themselves eternal life. And you just play that with a deck of cards. And it was actually really good fun. And I'd love to play that with you guys as well. There's D&D we can run. I'm excited for that as well. This isn't the actual rule book, but RuneQuest is a setting I'd love to explore and a game I'd love to explore. It's a bit more granular in how it works. You roll a d100 and it doesn't have levels like Dungeons & Dragons does. It's a skill-based system, so you level up the skills as you use them. So in true, Skyrim style, I would hop everywhere to get my jumping feet up. I wouldn't do that. There's also an RPG called Clever Girl, which is a solo RPG, which I would love to try, and I'd love to try with you guys, where there's two different versions of it, and one of them you play as somebody trying to escape from Jurassic Park after the dinosaurs have escaped, and the other side is that you play the raptors trying to hunt the humans after you've escaped from your enclosure in Jurassic Park, and that sounds hilarious to me and amazing, so I want to give that a go. There's also a cute little I say cute, but it's probably going to end up being quite vicious. A small scale RPG called Mouse Ritter, where you play as mice going on adventures. But there's also a solo rules for that called Frog Errant, where you play a singular frog knight going off to do it. So looking at those rules, the Frog Errant is slightly more powerful than the characters that you would play as a mouse, and then has this oracle, yes, no kind of thing. I'm tempted to try that with a Frog Errant knight and then like a little mouse sidekick or mouse squire. And we'll see how we go. I did think if we end up doing a read-along for the, can you see them there, the red wall books here, then doing a mouse ritter play through actual play alongside that would be really, that would tie in together really nicely, I think. What else have I got? I mean, there's loads of RPGs out there. They're just near infinite now, that it's so great that you can just have a lot of these indie developers and writers and producers can just produce these smaller RPGs like Clever Girl or Leechdom, and they're just there for you to play. There's also the One Ring, which is, I'm sure you've guessed, Lord of the Rings RPG. Give me 2 seconds and I'll grab you a copy of something. Here is the massive rulebook. This is by Free League Games, and they do loads of amazing stuff. So to be honest, we could just like run through Free League's that catalogue and I would be very happy. They've got one called Dragonbane, which came out recently, which is a re-release, a revamp of an old one called Dragons and Demons, which was the kind of Swedish or Scandinavian kind of equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. So those two at least for Free League. They've also got one called Varson. Hang on a second, I should have prepared this earlier. Well, this is, quickly before I show you the Varson, this is the Dragonbane box set, which is designed to be quite quick and quite fun to play. In the rulebook for Dragonbane, this is the front cover for the rulebook in there. So basically we're going to have to play this because I want to play Darkwing Duck. So we're going to do that at some point. Back to Varson. Varson is like a Nordic horror role-playing game where you play kind of like 1920s, playing investigators, seeking out, these strange supernatural beings that are kind of on the liminal spaces of civilization, and, they're struggling to find their place as industrialization kicks in a bit more. So they did that one, and there's an expansion for that, which is Mythic Britain and Ireland. So again, really love to try that out with you guys, because I haven't had a chance to run those yet. There's only so many hours in the day, and when you play with other people, there's also the scheduling aspect of it, which, as everyone who plays RPGs will know, the main enemy that you'll face in any campaign, any setting, is always scheduling. There's one more from Free League that I would like to try, which is this Symbaroum, which is sort of a dark forest setting. More fantasy than Varson in that there's elves and goblins and trolls and everything. It just seems really kind of dark and gritty. I kind of love the setting. I will go into it later if and when we do that. So those are all ones that we can play with the GM emulator, or there's several that have specific solo rules, like the One Ring has a Strider mode where you can play on your own. I think the Dragonbane has it's called Alone in Deepfall Breach, which is a procedurally generated random dungeon that you go through on your own as you play through. I think there's some fast and solo rules as well, but with the GM Mythic emulator or a similar Oracle system, you can play any of these on your own as it goes. So those are ones we can play with the emulator. There's also this Ironsworn, which is a solo RPG designed for you to play on your own, which sounds great. It's a kind of a Norse-inspired Scandinavian, tough, gritty setting in that way, and I am tempted, we'll see how it goes, but we could do like a Windborne inspired thing for that. So off the top of my head, that covers most of the RPGs that I'd like to maybe have a look at. We can do short or long seasons with them, just follow a character through a particular quest. There's also something I like the sound of, which is a solo sort of skirmish game. So like a very small scale Warhammer, I guess, tabletop battle skirmish type thing with a overarching narrative. But I mean, we could try it on a virtual tabletop, but I'd love to be able to do that on a tabletop, and then, we could see the miniatures going around. Certainly at the moment, I do not have the capacity to do that. I have a webcam. I have like 2 other webcams kicking around, but it might be a bit much to do all that. So maybe we can think about that later. Future Alex here from the editing suite, because I realised that I never actually mentioned what this game is. So there's 2 versions of this skirmish game, one of which is called 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, and the other is called 5 Parsecs from Home, which is a sci-fi version, and I think that one came first. Anyway, back to you, past Alex. For now though, I think that covers a lot of the RPGs that I'd love to adventure with you. Yeah, just letting the dice kind of tell the story so we can be as surprised as each other. That is one of the things I love about tabletop RPGs, is that you as the game master can have a plan, the characters have a plan, but neither of those things can happen because the dice will roll a completely different way, which is why I sort of love this t-shirt that says the dice will tell the story, because you could plan for one thing, the dice can plan for the other, and then you hit the middle road with that, or die horribly. Who knows? We'll find out together. That's the point. So I think that's enough of me prattling on about the potential things that we're going to do. So let's talk about the things that we are going to do. We're going to run a D&D adventure. I don't know how long it's going to be. Part of the GM Mythic Emulator is that there's a track for the quests that you can do, so you can tick them off and then get to the quest eventually, because obviously you won't know that as a player and GM and all of it at once. You won't be able to practically plan where we're going to go. I did a quick test of running up a random character earlier, and I came up with a character that was kind of cool, and I might pick them up another time, but it was like a tiefling paladin who had joined the military, didn't know their parents, or they did know their parents but had bounced around, and using various roles discovered that their first quest would be to escort somebody who was in the same military order to a nearby fort, because the town that they were in, the mayor was corrupt, and they wanted protection to go across the mountains to this fort. And that was all just with random rolls. So I'm really excited to see the adventure that we can go on together, and I have no idea what it's going to be. So it'll just be a complete glorious adventure that we can go on together. So let's go over to the computer. I'll grab Xanathar's Guide and a couple of other bits, and then we can just make a character and go on an adventure. And we are back. So you can see that we have changed the setup slightly. We've shifted around the room. I've got the stuff that we need here. We've got Xanathar's Guide to help with the actual character. We've got Perilous Wilds, which will help set up the actual setting that we're going to be running through. I've got a couple of PDFs up here as well to help us with anything we might get stuck with. And I think that's basically all we need. There is a section in Xanathar's Guide that basically covers everything you need to know about a character's backstory. It is called This Is Your Life. There's a lot of tables to cover things like parents, where you were born, if you've got any siblings, if you have any enemies, and things like that. And there are some supplemental tables within that to cover classes and races and things like that. So those are obviously designed to cover your enemies or allies, as the case may be, but I thought it would be more fun to really throw in that random element and use those to determine what we play as well. This could go really badly. Some of these classes are going to really lean into solo play a little bit more, depending on where the adventure might take us. For example, wizards are going to be casters, so they'll be pretty good, but they're also very, very brittle. So that would be, a barbarian would be a lot easier to keep alive in terms of hit points, especially because we'll be starting at level 1, partly because, it's fun to start at the beginning of an adventure, and also because there's otherwise potentially a lot of admin with D&D, if things, as you start getting into higher levels, things have got a lot more hit points. If those of you who played D&D, that a combat can drag on, and if it's just me, then and you, we don't want to drag that on too much. So we need to change screen. We need to move into our official role-playing setup. Here we go. So we've got two things on this side. As you can see, the one at the top is going to be basically the dice tray, and the one at the bottom is going to be you should show the numbers of the dice as they roll. So I thought I thought about physical dice, because there's something about rolling physical dice that is really nice. But I think this is just going to be clearer to show you what we're rolling and what the results are. So I think it'd just be a bit of a, we can see the results together. It'll be a bit of a nicer experience. Okay, so where do we start? Let's go through. There's supplemental tables. Let's skip the alignment and call to death. I think we're going to go with assuming that it's a vaguely normal fantasy world, and that the hero that we're playing is at least moderately heroic. At the best, rogue with a heart of gold. Okay, D100 to see what our class is going to be. 79. Okay, so there you go. At least the dice works if there's a little delay on one of them. 79. That leads us to a rogue. Okay, 71 to 84 is a rogue. Okay. Let's write that down. Rogue. Apologies if the camera twiddles a bit while I'm scribbling stuff down on this bit of paper. Okay, rogue's not too bad. We can sneak around. I'm not too worried about a rogue in terms of solo play. I think that lends itself nicely to a lot of different kinds of adventures as well. Let's go with race next. There's things like occupations and other bits, but we'll do all that in the backstory part. Okay, so what kind of rogue are we? 38. Okay. 38 is a dwarf. Okay. Oh no, wait. 38 is a human. Sorry. 1 to 40. I was But it bodes well that maths is already eluding me in this endeavour. So human rogue. Okay, so potentially really leaning into that thief with a heart of gold thing there. I promise this is not scripted at all. Okay, so human rogue. That's nice. We've got plenty to work with there. Okay, so now we're moving on to the origins phase. So we're going to go back from basically who our parents were and on. So let's go with who did we know our parents? 1 to 95 we did, and 96 and above and we don't. So what's that? 24. Cool. We do know who our parents are. Parents, tick. Yes, parents. Well, I guess that that doesn't necessarily mean they're still alive. There was a supplement, a couple of bits for non-human parents, but we don't need that. So where were we born? There is a 50% chance it was just at home. But what's that? 67. A barn, shed, or outbuilding. Okay, so maybe our parents were farmers. Maybe we were, like working the land, farmers, born in a shed, or maybe our parents were, traveling, and that was the best they could do. That was the only source of shelter they had for this. Siblings. Do we have any siblings? So D10, 1, no siblings, only child. Okay, cool. That's just less people have to pay attention to. That's fine. I quite like the idea that we were born in a barn. I'm not sure why that particular one is speaking to me. Maybe it's because it was first on the list. But we were born in a barn. Maybe that our parents ran the farm. It was a family farm, and maybe that was just the closest place we could get to at the time. It's a farm on the edge, a barn on the edge of the farm. Right, the next one is family. So who raised you and what was your life like growing up? Another D100 to roll. 23. Oh, 32, sorry. I definitely know which way around these are. 32, an adoptive family. Same or different race. Okay, that's interesting. So maybe, but then we knew who our parents were. And then it's an adoptive family that raised us. Okay, so were these the same or a different race? Let's cover that. Let's roll a d6, and then 1 to 3 is the same, and 4 to 6 is different. Okay, different race. Okay, so one of the supplemental tables here is absent parent. So they have to have been absent if we were raised by somebody else. And there is a d4 to tell us why this parent is absent. What's that? Is that a 4? It's difficult to see on that. 4. Your parents disappeared to an unknown fate. Okay, that's certainly an adventure seed right there. Okay, we'll jump back to the fact that our parents disappeared. It's occurred to me that it's going to be good to know the race of our adoptive family. So let's roll on that race chart again. And what's that? 16. Okay, we're going to re-roll that because that's humans again. So we need to get a result above 40. Maybe this isn't the best way to do it. Oh, 91. Oh man, that's so interesting. I'm not sure if does that work. That says tiefling. Oh my goodness. What an interesting childhood we've had. So maybe the barn is on the edge of a homestead that our parents were travelling. And their mother had to give birth in a barn. And maybe this is a distant homestead of a tiefling family who have to sort of live on the outskirts because they are not trusted by everybody else. That's interesting to me. Shall we, at this point as well, get the gender of our character, our protagonist? We'll do 1 to 3 is a girl and 4 to 6 is a boy. Okay, so we are a woman. Okay, we're just going to go through the table. So family lifestyle, I think on a farm, let's assume we were raised by these tiefling farmers who have moved to the back. So that's actually quite 11. Yeah, a modest lifestyle. That fits in with that. Okay, great. So these tiefling farmers have raised us. But that question in the back of my mind that our parents have disappeared to an unknown fate is constantly tugging. Okay, childhood home is there. That's okay. We're going to leave that because I think we've got a good answer for that. Right. Next, it has some background information here that actually does have a mechanical effect in D&D. In that, for example, one of the backgrounds is folk hero, so common people are more likely to help you in your endeavours. There's about 13 here, so I think we're just going to roll. I've got a D10 and a D4, and on a 1 or a 14, we'll call it the same. Or maybe on a 14 we can pick. Let's do that. Okay, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A guild artisan. That is not what I was expecting. Let's see. I'm going to roll. It's got a why I became a guild artisan here as well. So 4, it says, I was always good with my hands, so I took the opportunity to learn a trade. And I can see that happening. Let's say that we're in a tiefling farm of these outcasts, and a trader comes to just maybe passes by, takes the night to stay with our adoptive family, and then they find out that maybe we're really good at sort of carving things and sculpting. I quite like that, a good whittler, and they offer to take us on, and we go and become a guild apprentice. Okay, so our background is guild artisan. That's nice. See, I also like that because as the whittling, that's quite fine work, and we're a rogue, so I feel like that could be a little bit of a rebellious streak while we were doing our apprenticeship, and that leads to lockpicking, and all of a sudden we're quite roguish in our adventurousness. Okay, there's another d6 we could roll to say why we became a rogue, so I think that might be good to do. 1, okay, that feels like it's going to be a bad one. I've always been nimble and quick of wit, so I decided to use those talents to help me make my way in the world. Let's say that as we were doing our apprenticeship, maybe it wasn't enough to pay the bills, or maybe we got, just a bit of the heady city life sort of blinded us, and we got maybe a bit carried away as we went. So we became a rogue to kind of help pay some. Maybe we just fell into the wrong crowd, help pay for some few nights on the town. Okay, life events by age. I'm feeling it's 1d4 because I'm feeling like our adventurer isn't too old. Maybe they've run into a bit of trouble in the city, and that's why they have to leave. So let's see how many we get. 1d4 life events. It's just one. Okay, fair, fine. That's how we're playing the game. We're playing the roles. That's the point of these tabletop RPGs. Okay, another d100 for our life event. What's that? 61. You spent time working in a job related to your background. Start the game with an extra 2d6 gold pieces. Okay, that's always nice. Extra 10 gold pieces for us as we go through. So I like the idea that maybe we've turned to the roguish pursuits to help us pay off maybe some debts, or we fell into the wrong crowd a little bit with that. So there's a table here for crime, basically. So I'm wondering if maybe we roll that and see if we were embroiled in a crime and have had to leave town because of that. Okay, I think we're going to do it. Okay, it's a d8. Man, I hope it's not a 1. Okay, 1 was murder, by the way. 8 is counterfeiting. So we were embroiled in counterfeiting, and the next one down says punishment. But did we do it? Yeah, let's roll d12 and see what this says. 12. Oh no. We were caught and convicted, and you spent time in jail, chained to an oar, or performing hard labour. You served a sentence of 1d4 years, or succeeded in escaping after that much time. I feel like we escaped. How many years were we in prison? 4. 4 years in prison. This feels like a good moment to use the fate chart from GM Mythic Emulator. It is essentially a yes-no question that you ask the chart, and there are various tables. I will put the fate chart up here just before we roll, and then we ask it the question, and then the lower the number, the better in terms of a yes is beneath. We have a target number that we have to get below. So did we escape from prison? After 4 years in prison, I feel like we would have had that. We didn't know what happened to our parents eating away at us until then. So I think it's likely. So the chaos factor at the bottom is going to be 5 at the start of the adventure. And basically, if something keeps ramping up out of our control, we turn that number up. And if we feel like we control events, it goes down. So we definitely start at 5. I feel like given the class that we have, it's likely that we escape from prison. Yep, no, we're going to try it. So we need to get under a 65. Well, under a 65 means that we did escape from prison. I was going to say we want that, but I guess we don't necessarily. I mean, like in terms of story, that would be we're sought by the law. That immediately makes it more interesting. But I don't know if that's what we want, because who wants to be chased by the law? Okay, what have we got? 82. We did not escape from prison. Okay, so we served our time. Okay, I think in that case we're going to have. I mean, it answers the question of where the equipment is gone. We've got all of our stuff back after that. Presumably they haven't paid us the interest on the 10 gold pieces that we have. In my head, I'm just, in terms of what we were doing in prison, I feel like maybe we weren't in prison, maybe we were doing hard labour, like in my head, I've got kind of a marble mine type. Marble feels like a big thing to be given to prisoners, but you know, like a rock mine or something that we were doing for those 4 years. Oh my goodness, that's such a long time. Okay, so I think maybe we have to ask the question: did we make any enemies in prison? Are we the kind of person to try and keep our head down? Oh, I tell you what, there is in Mouse Ritter. There's a dispensation. Dispensation, is that the word I want? Yeah, I think so. For how your character acts, it gives you like a star sign, and you know that is how that character might act. Is sort of for NPCs, but I feel like we could use it here. So let me grab that. So it's a D6, and there's a couple of like brave and reckless, generous and wrathful, wise and mysterious. So yeah, it's a bit more geared towards NPCs, but we can definitely give it a go. Right, let's roll D6. What have we got? 4. Okay, born under the sign of the storm, generous, but also wrathful. I like that. So that feels to me like it's probably quite likely that we made some enemies while we were doing our hard time and hard labour. I feel like that's very likely. Okay, let's roll again. So very likely on the chart is we need a 75 or under. A 75 or under is a yes. 99. Oh my god, that's even better. Like in terms of what this is. So that is an extreme no. So not only did we not make any enemies in prison during our hard labour, yeah, it's like the most that answer can be. Wow, we did a 96 or above for that extreme no. Okay, wow. Okay, so maybe we made some connections in there, some allies. We are generous but wrathful. So maybe we were a force. You know, we were kind to our friends, and everybody wanted to be our friend. Okay, cool. That wasn't what I was expecting. That's fine. Right. Okay. We'll mark that down as the NPCs. Maybe just a broad contact, because presumably there'll be some people who have been released after us who have also gone out into the world. Okay. Right. I feel like we've got a good base for this now. Like, we need to go and find our parents. We've got some underworld contacts maybe. So I think let's now go for doing the setting. Let's see where we are. So for this one, we're going to use Perilous Wilds because it has just some nice brief tables to create just regions and names and things like that. Okay, so let's go we're going to go down to these places. So the first one is region. We've got a region name template that we go with first, and then we roll on some tables to make the names. So it's a D12 to find the name template. So let's do that. D12. 6. Terrain of the noun. Okay, so terrain. These are both D100s, so we need to roll D100. So we've got what was that, 29? Heath. Okay, that's of 35. Okay, okay. I'm starting to see why the tieflings were slightly outcast. Heath of God is the region that we were put to work in and have come from, I think. So that makes sense to me. So this also says to me that the region that we are in is quite temperate. I feel like, having said we were kind of doing like classic fantasy, I feel like we are solidly in the realms of vast woodlands and a few open grassland and some maybe a few mountains here and there, sweeping hills and all that good stuff. Right, okay, so we've got Heath of God is where we've started. That just raises so many questions. Maybe there's a religious order that has taken on like the policing and is the authority in this region. Maybe that's why we were targeted for. I mean, did we do it? Were we unjustly targeted because we came from a family of tieflings? Okay, let's go with the place name. So again, we need a D12 for the template. 7. The noun's place. So we need. Let's go with the noun first. What we got? 85. The noun is 85. Stone. Roll that again for the place. 95. Stone Valley. I mean, I promise you this isn't scripted. Okay, we are in Stone Valley. I mean, if you needed proof that this wasn't scripted, the fact that I can't remember if we rolled to see if we actually committed the crime is a good thing. I don't think we did, so we're going to roll for that again. I think it's unlikely that we committed the crime, given that we are generous but wrathful, so we might have tried to help with our... But then we probably did it then, right? I think it's unlikely. So let's roll. Unlikely, we need... Under 35 is what we need for a yes. I bet it's under 35. It's a 10. Okay, that was very nearly an extreme left. Yes. So, yeah, we did it. Maybe, as I say, we've got these artisan skills and we helped to counterfeit something that people were selling. Okay, so we're in Stone Valley, which is obviously called Stone Valley because there is the mine that we've been working in. We have a raft of underworld contacts because we have the gang that we were involved with to start with, and we've got these other people, these allies that we made whilst we were working in prison. And I think our main thing to do now is to try and find what happened to our parents. You know what else we need? We need a name. So we are a female human. Xanathar's got a nice chunk of names. Will we have a human name or will we have a tiefling name? I feel like the tiefling adopted family is living on the edge of Stone Valley or wherever they actually are. We don't know if they're there. So I feel like they would have named the human child something human-ish rather than specifically that would call them out as being from tiefling stock. So let's just go with an English female name. Another D100. Hopefully it's a good name. 21. Egelina. You know what? I'm going to give myself a roll again because I'm struggling to pronounce that. 6. Agnes. I love it. I love how much of an old person name that is. Cool. Agnes, the human rogue, searching for her parents. I will stat her up separately so that you don't have to just watch me doing that. I think we've got some really nice stuff to work with. The key thread there is clearly going to be finding out what happened to our parents. Yeah, I think we've got some great stuff to work with. Agnes, the human rogue with ties to myriad underworld. You know, actually, she's also got a few higher society, presumably contacts with the fact that she was a guild artisan before she got thrown in prison. Maybe some of those were soured, seeing as she was thrown in prison and sentenced to 4 years of hard labour. But that's interesting that she might be able to pull on those threads as well. That sounds good to me. We'll have a think about helping Agnes find her parents. So I hope that was interesting to you, this kind of session 0 introduction to the role-playing and the adventure that we're going to have together. And next time we'll find out exactly what happens as Agnes leaves her 4 years hard labour, enters into Stone Valley to rejoin society as much as she can, and find out what happened to her parents. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon.